We already know how we can communicate from a parent component to a child component using public attributes. Now, if you want to communicate from your child component to your parent component, or if you want to send some data from your child component to your parent components, then in that case, you need to use component events. The component events are very similar to the browser events that we have been handling so far. For example, when we were handling the onClick event on the Aura buttons, that was a type of component event that we were handling. So now, in order to give the same functionality to our own custom components, we need to use the component events so that we can notify our parent components about some change, or we can send some data. You can fire a component event using the instance of the component. That means we need to use our component variable in the JavaScript file. And once you fire it, it can be handled in the same component which is firing it, or it can be handled by any of its parent components. So let's take a look at the markup of a component event. So you need to create an Aura event, and the type should be component. And in this component, you can have as many attributes as you want, or you can leave it blank as well. These attributes will act as a payload or the data that you want to send from your child component to your parent component. And to fire an event, first you need to have an Aura:register event component, where you need to define the component name and the type of the component. And here in the type, you need to give the exact name of the component that you will create. And remember, you need to use your namespace here. And by default, all the Salesforce has the custom namespace or C. But if you are working in a managed package, then you need to give the namespace of your managed package. So this register event tag will go inside your component file. And once you register the event, then in order to fire it, you need to use your JS files. And to fire it, first you need to get the event using the getEvent method. And inside this getEvent method, you need to give the name of your component. Then you can set all the parameters or the attributes to your component that you want to send. The event will carry these attributes or this data along with it, and this data can be used in the parent component. The last thing would be to use the fire method to actually fire this event. Just keep in mind, the getEvent method takes the name of your event. Now the second phase would be to handle this event, which will be happening in the parent component. And we already know how to handle an event, because we have already been handling the init event, or we have already seen the example of handling the render event as well. So we'll use the similar pattern. We'll use our Aura:handler tag to handle our event. Here under the name attribute, you need to give the name of your component event. Then under the event attribute, you need to give the fully qualified event name along with the namespace. And then under the action attribute, you need to give the name of your JavaScript method, which is going to execute when this event will be handled. So let's go back to our word shuffle game and let's check out where do we need to handle these events and from where do we need to fire it. So here, once I click on a tile, I need to send an event to my parent board component. Like I clicked on this tile and this is the word behind it, so that my parent component can check if the user has won or not, and it can update the mouse counter as well. So we'll be firing it from the block component and we'll be handling it in our board component. So let's go back to our VS Code, and first thing that we need to do here is to create an Aura event. So open your command palette and select create Aura event. Let's name our event as block click event, and let's select our default directory. Now by default, VS Code will create this placeholder code. Here we need to change the type from application to component, because we are creating a component event. And within this component event, I'm going to create an attribute as well, which is going to carry the label value of that particular block, so that our board component will know which of the block was clicked. So let's create an attribute here, and I'm going to name it as value, and this should be of type string. So we have created our event. Now we need to fire it from our block component. And in order to fire it, first we need to register the event here. So I'm going to add a comment here. And let's use our Aura register event tag. Here under the name, you can name it anything that you want, but I like to follow the similar syntax that we see in our browser events. So I'm going to name this event as onClick, and then under the type, first you need to give the namespace, which is C, and then the event name, which is block click event. Make sure that you do not do any spelling mistake or you do not do any type of casing error here. Make sure that your event name is exactly the same as you created it. The best way to do it is to copy the event name from your file here. Okay, so now we have registered our event. The next thing would be to fire it. And we want to fire it when a user will click on that particular block. So we are already handling this event here in our block click handler method. So let's go to our block controller file. And here when we are setting this open property to true, here I want to fire the event as well. Remember our syntax to fire an event. First we need to get the event using the get event method. So I'm going to name it comp event. And we need to use our component instance or variable. And then we need to use get event method. And this method takes the event name, which is, I believe, onClick. And then we need to set the parameters value. So this event has one parameter or one attribute which is called value. So we are going to set its value using comp event dot set params method. Now this will be a JSON object, so you need to use your curly braces, then your attribute name, which is value, then the colon, and then the actual value that you want to supply here. So our actual value would be this label, right? So first let's get this label value. Let's store it in a variable. And then we need to pass this label to our parent component. So that should be it. Now the last thing would be to fire it using the fire method. Awesome. So we have fired our event. Now we need to handle it in our parent component, which is this board component. So in order to handle it, we need to have one more Aura handler. And the name of the event should be same as this event name, which is onClick. And then we do not need to give value to this event as this is our own custom event, but we need to give it the event name using the event attribute. So this should be C colon block click event, and then under the action attribute we need to give the JavaScript method name. So let's name it as block click handler. And now we need to create this method inside our controller file. So let's open the controller file of the board component. Let's create one more method here. We are going to accept all the parameters, which is component, event, and helper. And here now we need to use our event variable, because this event variable is going to carry the payload or the data with it. And we are interested in this label value that will be sending from our block component. Let's store it inside a variable. We are going to name it as value. And we need to use our event variable dot get param. So when we were setting these values, we were using set params. Now we need to use get param. And then the parameter name or the attribute name, which is this value. So we have got our value here. Now the next thing would be to check if this value is equals to this win word, because if that is the case, then the user has won. So let's do that. Here let's have an if condition where I'm going to match this value triple equals to component dot get v dot winworld, and if that is the case then user has won. If not, then user has not won yet. Now along with this check, we also need to maintain our click counter or the moves left. So here our click count is set to 0 by default, and we are going to increase it every time we are handling this event, because this event will be fired when the blocks will be clicked. So that means the user is utilizing his moves. So first let's get its current value, the current click count. So I'm going to store them inside a variable. And this is going to give me the actual click count at the moment. Then I'm going to add 1 to it so that I'll get the latest click count. So this is going to give me the previous click count, but since now we are inside this handler method, we need to increase it by 1, because just now the user has clicked on one more block tile. So if user has not won, then we are going to have an else if condition where we will check if user has utilized all his moves. So let's use click count triple equals to 3. If that is the case, then user lose here. So let's store this result somewhere in an attribute inside our board component. So let's create one more attribute and let's call it result. This should be of type string, and we are going to store our results from our JavaScript file. So let's set the value here, component.set v.result, and the value should be you win. Let's copy this, and here we'll say you lose. Let's also print this in our console log so that we can also see it. And in the end, let's update our click counter as well, so that we always get the updated count next time. So let's use component.set v.click count, and this should be equals to click count. So I guess this should be it. Let's deploy our code. We have got an error and it says no event named block click event found. Okay, I know the reason. We need to deploy all our components all together. So right click on this default folder and click on deploy source to org. This time it deployed fine. Let's refresh our page. Let's open our DevTools as well so that we can see the output. Start a new game, maybe in easy mode. The word that we need to find is round. Let's keep on clicking on these tiles. And here, after utilizing 3 moves, I see you lose because we haven't found the word. We can keep on playing because now we do not have any disable board kind of thing. So we can still keep on clicking on these tiles. And now we have found our round word and it says you win. So at least it's working, but our moves left counter has gone to -1, which is not allowed. So we'll fix these things in our next video. For now, I'm going to tell you one more way to handle these events. So you do not need to create the Aura handler if you are handling your component events. So you can comment this line and there's an easy way to handle your events. You can directly use your event name, which is this one, inside your parent component, and this only works on the immediate parent component. So here this block component is the direct child of our board component, so we can directly handle it here using the event name. You can use your event name like onClick. So I'm getting this from here, and then here you can define your handler method name. So I'm going to copy that from here. and we can save it. So now this looks a lot similar to how we used to handle our browser events. So I generally prefer this syntax rather than having an Aura handler. But if you want to use the Aura handler approach, that's also fine.